Good afternoon, everybody. This is Swedish Chef 2024. I hope that everyone's having a wonderful weekend so far. I wanted to make a video about how I make my starting lineups in APBA baseball. So if you go to the appagames.com website and you go to the baseball shop, there's a download link there for each season where you can look at the different lineups for each year. So right now I've got 1981 pulled up, and it says on here that the following players are contained in the 1981 edition of APBA Baseball, the APBA Major League Baseball game. We will not reply to any correspondence questioning our selection of the players which comprise the teams listed below. Batting orders may be arranged in any number of sequences without affecting individual performances of any of the players. These were the batting orders most frequently used in 1981. And it has all the different batting orders and lineups for the 81 season. There are also lineups for previous seasons and post 1981 seasons too. So if you're playing a game like I will be soon between the Montreal Expos and the Pittsburgh Pirates that never got played because it was postponed and it never got made up that year, you can use this as a model or a reference to choose your lineups. You can also use this if you're doing a season replay or a one-off, and you can use this to determine how your batting orders should be or what they should look like. And I think this is a pretty neat tool to have on the website here. Another thing that I like to do, which is a little bit more in depth, is to go to retrosheet.org. And this is something that I've done in the past with out-of-the-park developments when I fill out my lineup card. I go to retrosheet.org, and if you go to games, this is at the top of the page here, games, people, and parks, and then go to games, regular season, it's going to give you a directory of all the Major League seasons from 1871 to 2023. So if I go to 1981, I can pull up any team from that season here. So for example here, there's a game that I will be replaying from the 81 season, which was scheduled originally for April 11th of 1981, which was a Saturday between the Montreal Expos and the Pittsburgh Pirates that never got played, never got made up. So the two starting pitchers for that game would have been Scott Sanderson for the Montreal Expos and John Candelaria for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So, for example here, let's take a look here at John Candelaria's profile. Go pull up his batter matchups. You go to retrosheet.org, you pull up his batter matchups. And Buck Showalter a few years ago gave an interview online, and he talked about how he constructs his batting lineups. What he does is he works his way from the very bottom up to the top. So he starts with the 9th hitter or the 8th hitter, and then he goes up to the top. He also said that there are guys that are called givens, given hitters like Ricky Henderson. You know he's going to bat leadoff. There are certain guys that you know, like McGuire, Canseco, are going to hit 3 and 4. Or if you want to go back a little bit further, Maris and Mansell are going to be 3 and 4 in the lineup. Some guys like Willie Randolph in the mid to late 80s are going to hit second. Don Mattingly is going to hit third. Wade Boggs batted leadoff for the Red Sox, and Marty Barrett would hit second, or vice versa. So you have your givens, but then you're going to have little holes in the lineup. So where do you put these guys? You look in there and you start with maybe your weaker hitters, and then you work your way up to the top. And I thought that was a pretty cool tool here. That sounds funny, cool tool. But a very nice feature that you can use when you're making your lineups. And that's something that I take into consideration too. Another manager that's a big influence on me when it comes to strategy is Earl Weaver. And Earl Weaver kept his statistics. He was meticulous when it came to stats. He kept everything on index cards. And Weaver was a manager who believed in having as much information at your disposal as you had. He also was a manager who believed, oddly enough, that you should not manage by statistics alone. There are certain variables that come into play. Guys go into slumps, guys get hot. They may not be 100%. You might need to give them a day off. And it might be late in the season. You might want to give a rookie a chance to play. Weather comes into a factor. Certain players do better in certain environments. So you can't manage exclusively by statistics, but the more information you have at your disposal, the better you have a chance of winning. So let's just take, for example, John Candelaria. We got his profile here. Tim Raines, the Expos leadoff hitter. 7 hits and 24 at-bats against Candelaria lifetime. Now, these are the lifetime statistics. Obviously, they would not have been that way in 1981. But if I look at Raines here, he hit 292, 320 on base percentage, 417 slugging percentage. Raines is going to be leading off anyway, but he's got a good average. If I look at Gary Carter, 15 hits in 61 at-bats, and 9 of them were extra base hits, 4 doubles and 5 home runs. That's pretty good success. Andre Dawson, 12 hits in 42 at-bats, and Weaver said 20 at-bats is a good model. It's a good, what am I trying to say here? But 20 at-bats is a good sample size. Thank you, Brain. When you're evaluating hitters, is to look at least 20 at-bats gives you a good idea of how he does against a certain pitcher. So Dawson, 286 average, 318 on base, 405 slugging percentage. Warren Cromartie, conversely, who was a left-handed hitter, batted just 114 with a 162 on base percentage, 143 slugging percentage, 4 out of 35. So if I'm looking at that, besides the fact that he's a left-handed hitter, although Cromartie had success against lefties and righties, I probably am not going to put Cromartie in the starting lineup in that game. And more than likely going to go with someone else like maybe Tim Wallach here. Wallach went 3 for 19 with a home run and a triple. 158 average, 238 on base, 421 slugging. Not great, not much better, but it is better than Cromartie. And Wallach had 19 at-bats, so he didn't quite meet the 20 at-bats. So, excuse me, that's more than likely who I would choose in that game. So if I go to Montreal, I'm going to look at Scott Sanderson's statistics here. So Sanderson's going to start for Montreal in this game. And I go to someone like Omar Moreno, who was the leadoff hitter. Moreno, who played pretty much every day, and he was the consummate leadoff hitter for that era. 300 batting average, 344 on base percentage, and 18 hits and 60 at-bats. 10 of them were extra base hits. 5 doubles, 4 triples, 1 homer, and a partridge in a pear tree. Okay, just kidding. Now, Jason Thompson was usually their regular first baseman that year. Willie Stargell started to see his playing time get decreased. But Jason Thompson, look at him here. Look at his statistics. 3 hits and 19 at-bats, 1 home run, but a 158 average, 273 on base, 316 slugging percentage. Not great. However, Willie Stargell, Pops, had a 389 batting average, 429 on base percentage, 944 slugging percentage. 7 hits and 18 at-bats, and 4 of those 7 hits were extra base hits, 1 double, 3 home runs. So more than likely, I'm going to go with Willie Stargell in that game over Jason Thompson. The only exception I might make is if Thompson was just red hot on fire, or if Cromartie was just on a roll and on fire. But generally speaking, most of the time I'm going to go with Stargell over Thompson or Wallach over Cromartie. But this is retrosheet.org here, and I'll use this too when I'm making a pitching change late in the game. When I look for the bullpen, I will look at the box scores on Baseball Reference and Retrosheet to see who the manager selected as the relief pitcher that game. But obviously, this is a replay, not a replica. There might be a game in real life where, for example, say the White Sox and the Red Sox, where the White Sox were leading that game. So they may go with Lamar Hoyt or Ed Farmer. Where if they're losing, they may not necessarily go with them. Like if they're down like 5-0 to Boston, they might be going with another pitcher, maybe a mop-up guy. I don't know. But those are decisions that you can make within the game. And I will look at the numbers that the pitchers did against certain hitters and say, okay, do I go with this pitcher or do I go with that pitcher? The more information that you have at your disposal, the better. And that's really what I believe in. That's why I like to use RetroSheet when I'm filling out my lineup cards. And I will use the APBA site too. I can go there. That gives a good starting point. And I can say, okay, these are the most frequently used lineups. And I will give APBA this. They did a great job of listing the starting lineups here because this is pretty accurate. Now, I will say some of the players on these teams were not on the teams at the beginning of the season because there were trades that were made. So, for example, let me try and find an example of a player here. Phil Garner, they have listed on the Astros. Well, Garner was originally with the Pirates at the beginning of the season, and then he later got traded to the Astros. So you're going to have a little play here and there, but overall, this is a really good source. And I think that you can also find this information on Baseball Reference too, the batter-pitcher matchups. I use RetroSheet because I've been using that for decades now. And that's been very helpful to me. So I hope it's been very helpful to you. This is just another extra tool that I use. I've done it with Out of the Park. And let me know your thoughts on this. If you have any comments, suggestions, questions, I would love to hear them. Thank you for watching, everybody. Hope you have a happy rest of your weekend. I'll see you soon.